So, hello everybody. Today I would like to talk to you about one of my biggest gripes as a GM, and that is bloat. We all know that there is a really big company that is trying to monetize their role-playing efforts a lot more, and rightly so. Obviously, when we look at the figures, we have 1 million players, only 200,000 will make the company money to a large degree because it's usually the DMs, GMs, storytellers that buy all the books, mainly adventures, supplements, etc. The normal player usually just ends up buying the player's handbook, and that's normally all that they need. And of course, we all know that this means that there isn't a lot of money to be made in role-playing. And that in and of itself, of course, as a business model is terrible when you compare it to things like living card games, like the Lord of the Rings card game, which has been brought out by Fantasy Flight Games, where you basically have to buy more and more and more packs in order to keep playing the story. And if you want to play with someone, you will not be able to just use one starter set, but you will need at least two to even just get a full set of your own basic cards that come with a starter set, because in a normal deck you can have up to 3 copies of each card. And of course, in the original starter set that I bought and that hundreds of thousands of other people probably bought and have played with, there weren't 3 of each, so you really needed to buy 2. But that's just beside the point. So this idea of monetizing the hell out of players by adding stuff, additions, expansions to a basic game is something that has been around for a good while in card games, in board games, and of course, role-playing games want to go down the same route because they need to make money as well. And while I don't have any problem with, let's say, somebody saying, oh, I really need to monetize the hell out of my franchise, I do have a problem when I am the one who is running a game. Because if you want to monetize the players, you have to give them something that they want to buy. And what do? Well, you give them supplements, which they believe they can't do without. And I would like to show you a game, which I have been, again, running since 2018. It's called Das Schwarze Auge, the Dark Eye, 5th edition, which is a prime example for bloat. And I haven't even bought everything that there is to buy to enhance characters, because that's the way how to monetize. You want to enhance the characters and you want to tell players, oh, you really need to buy this book in order to build a character. So I have also brought you a couple of other things. Number 1, this is the basic rulebook for Modern Age. So that's Green Ronin. And if you want to play Age, that's the name of the engine, Age. So there's Fantasy Age, Dragon Age, Modern Age, Blue Rose. And you want to play in a modern setting, this is the rule book to buy. And this is the only thing that you need to buy. You buy this as a player, you buy this as a DM, and you are good to go. You might want to maybe check out a secondary book about, let's say, a bestiary, but even that isn't required. So you could still use this and get some really good adversaries and also learn how to build interesting ones. But of course, if you choose, you can buy supplements, but they're not a must. Then we have Monster of the Week. Really, all you need to run this and to play this is in this book. You just need this. It's been around for a good while. There is some online stuff like the playbooks and some expansions for the playbooks, but they're really just one-pagers. And you can also decide not to use them. But again, you don't have to buy anything. And the number of playbooks, i.e. character types or archetypes, isn't that large either. Then another prime example of a one-stop shop rulebook is the Call of Cthulhu. If you have the Keeper's rulebook, that's all you as the Keeper will ever need. And then there's a Player's Handbook, which is smaller and has less information. And that's all that the players need. That's all there is. There are some expansions. There is kind of like a bestiary, if you like, but it's not a must because all of the information is really in here. Then you have Midgard, 5th edition. The Codex is the basic rulebook. Looks great. Unfortunately, it's not complete, because if you do want to cast spells or use divine magic, you will need the Arcanum. So again, here we're seeing bloat happen because this system has opted to split out two important and integral parts of the basic rules into two books, thus making more money. Because you as the game master will need the Arcanum, as will your players if they want to play a spellcaster. And I'm lumping in spellcasting and divine magic. And of course, there's also a bestiary, but that's a normal thing because most games come with a bestiary, or maybe even 2 or 3, because as you want to have maybe more epic monsters, or as you want to move into different settings, it's a good idea to bring this out separately, because if you were to lump in the bestiary with the basic rulebook, I totally get it, it would get really large. And then you have the Dark Eye. Now, the Dark Eye, and I stopped collecting a long time ago, comes with a basic rulebook. And I've got the English version somewhere here. And it is quite hefty. Big book. Large. However, for those of you who have any knowledge of the Dark Eye, you will know something about this rulebook, which is, in my opinion, totally appalling. The world of the Dark Eye comes with a set pantheon of 12 deities. There are additional deities that come into play later. They can basically... it's got a living history, and so sometimes, and this is just basically me moving some of the books from one side to the next. But the basic rules should contain, one would think, the whole pantheon, because you can play a cleric of any of these gods, and they all have a right to be there. So you would expect that all of the clerics and all of the deities can be played using the core rulebook. Not if you are DSA. No, because you will actually leave them out. There are only some clerics in there. So if I now want to play a cleric that isn't in the core rulebook, which is like saying the D&D class thief isn't in the rulebook. That would be really strange. The rogue isn't there. That's weird. So basically, in addition to the core rules, you will then have to start getting Divine Magic Part 1, Aventurisches Götterwirken. But it doesn't stop there, because we also have, and now I need to find it because there are so many of them, Divine Magic Part 2. Then we have normal magic, because there's magic in the base rulebook, and then we have Magic 1 and Magic 2 and 3. So that is really monetizing your players, because I want to play a spellcaster, and it's not like these are necessarily separate spellcaster rules or completely different spellcaster classes, but there is additional information for the existing ones. So they are really working on this FOMO, fear of missing out. Oh, I'm playing this kind of caster, so I'd better get this latest version of or this additional information book, because there might be something in there for me, you know. Same for the clerics need at least Aventurisches Götterwirken Divine Magic Part 1, because that's the only way you can get all of the basic deities presented to you. And I will not even stop there, because we have herbs, bestiary Part 1 and 2. I don't even know where Part 1 is. And then you have Daimonicon 1 and 2, because some of these are also available in the bestiary or in the base rulebook, but let's just put out 2 more books with the demons of the world, and it's not even all of them, because there are still some missing. Then you have the so-called Rüstkammern, which are basically regional supplements where weapons and particular armor is described for particular regions in the world, and so on and so forth. And there is more and more and more information that players can use to augment their characters. Now, one could say, okay, well, you know, why should I care as the game master? Because I'm telling a story. No, you can't just tell the story. In this system, you have to actually keep buying those books because you need to understand what your players could come up with. And yes, one can say you can go online and read the rules. Well, I'm doing this, and I have to say it is really annoying to have to go online and then just find the stuff that I'm looking for and have it ready at the next session. So no, for me this is actually not an option, because I don't see why I should always have to go online to find out what's happening with my players. So essentially, this is one way of really monetizing the hell out of your game. And this is where I have to say I'm done with it. There is a new magic book that has come out for DSA. It's called The Grimoire. Apparently there was also a misprint. Long story cut short, it's apparently terrible, the first version, because there were errors in it or misprints or something was wrong with it, especially also on the title. But it contains not only an all-encompassing one-stop shop for all of the already existing magic, but it also augments it again. It puts in new rules, and it's also supposed to look really nice. So that's not just a fluff thing, but it's also got crunch in it. And that's where I said to my group, sorry, we're not going to use this. We will have to put a stop to this. Lots of people in my group have bought the book. That's fine. I'm not going to use it at my table. And at this stage in my career as a player and as a DM, and I've been playing since the 80s, on and off different systems, I just want the simple life. I want 1, max 2, maybe 3 books that I need to reference in order to build a character, in order to run a game, in order to understand the world or the setting or the crunch. I don't want to have to read dozens of books to simply understand how to run the game, to keep up with it. And that's why I'm also really looking forward to Fantasy Age 2nd edition, because that's also going to be a one-stop shop again, a one book to rule them all. Shadowdark, and I can only recommend this, and I'm going to reference the Shadowdark Kickstarter in this video in the show notes. I have already signed up. I did a how to create a character on my channel. I've signed up for the Kickstarter. I'm not affiliated with Kelsey Dion in any way, but I really admire her work. I really admire also what she did for 5th edition. She's put out some really, really great 5th edition flavored adventures that you can buy. But I really don't want the bloat anymore, because for me as a DM, it gets really problematic when I have to keep up with whatever new stuff the company is putting out. Because if I play a monster that is basically in a pre-published adventure that doesn't take into account, that was brought out, let's say for 5th edition DSA in 2018, 2023, my players will have advanced so much beyond the capabilities of this adversary that is in that published book, because when they wrote it in 2018, all of those capabilities weren't even ready yet. They weren't even maybe conceived of yet. So I would always have to keep up. I would always have to try and understand what else is going on to make sure that my adversaries are always augmented to the level that actually works with my players. And that is also a big problem, and that is power creep. I mean, we have the one thing with power creep where basically it's already inherent in the game, like we know from a D&D 5th edition, that it doesn't scale. At a certain level, your heroes will be so powerful even without Xanathar or any of the other expansions that exist. And mind you, WotC has not really bloated the game that much. There aren't that many things that players need to get or can get to change and augment their characters. I mean, DSA is way worse than that, way, way worse. But, you know, all of this doesn't really this is bloat, but we have the power creep that is inherent in a lot of games when it doesn't scale up to epic level. I'm told that Pathfinder 2nd edition actually does a really good job of balancing this out. I've never played second edition. I just take everyone's word for it because that's one of the big things that people say, that you don't have this power creep in the second edition of Pathfinder, which makes it really terrible for the DM to run. But if we then additionally have this bloat where I just have to keep up with what's going on in order to make sure that my particular adversaries still scale with whatever players can come up with today, I'm just done with it because it prevents me from telling a story. It means that I will be crunching through the story. It means that I will be systeming through the story. And that is also why I personally want to reduce the amount of invest, both monetarily but also time invest into crunching myself through the system. And I know I'm not the only one, but I also know that there are people who really, really love this. And that's really, I think, the fine balance to strike, to also agree at the table. How much bloat do we allow? And going forward, I really want to reduce the bloat at the table by really concentrating on simple systems. And simple doesn't mean simplistic. It doesn't mean boring. It just means, do we really need 10 races with 51 classes and 160 specifications, feats, specializations, whatever? Or maybe are the 4 enough? I mean, Fantasy Age, second edition, will have 4 classes. One could argue, okay, in the mage you have the divine and the other essence magic. So maybe that's actually 2 classes, but it's really, mechanically speaking, folded into one, and it's all in there. Yes, you do have specializations in order to make sure that characters, even if they come from the same archetype, can be diversified so that it's not Joe 1, Joe 2, Joe 3, but that if you have 3 Joes, each Joe is so unique that the players feel I'm contributing in a unique way to the overall goal, to the overall game. And it does away with the bloat. And I think this is where we really need to think about. And also as consumers, don't just run after it. Don't just follow this drive from the companies and just keep buying stuff. There is no reason why we shouldn't just stick with what we've got. There is no reason why DSA should not have put all of the 12 clerics into the first rulebook. That would have been the smart thing to do. There is also no excuse for saying, oh, we're going to bring out Magic 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to bring out the Grimoire, and the Grimoire isn't just going to be a fluff book, but we're also going to put crunch in it. And at this stage, I really have to say I'm done with Ulysses as well, because this way of publishing and forcing people to keep buying is actually quite annoying. And it is in no way better than what WotC is planning. In a way, it's actually worse because you just feel you need to do it. You need to get those books, because if you don't, then how can you play with the others? How can you keep up with the others? You're always afraid that maybe your magician is then less relevant, less powerful. And that's something that I find really annoying. And that's me. It's been bugging me for a while. And so this video has been a long time in coming. And it also gave me an excuse to go to my bookshelf and actually just lift these books off the shelf. They're actually quite heavy. And I'm going to put them back now because I won't be using them. So talk to you soon and have a lovely rest of the day. Bye.